this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
Everyone knows winter is the real mess maker. You don't need WeatherTech floor liners for summer unless you hit the beach and half the beach ends up back in your car, or the campsite dirt ends up in your trunk. Then you'd want a cargo liner, or a road trip goes sideways, lemonade spills, ketchup goes rogue, ice cream drips. Yeah, you'd be pretty happy about those WeatherTech seat protectors. So just to be clear, as the mud you're inevitably going to step in this summer, you don't need WeatherTech unless you plan on doing summer. Visit WeatherTech.com today.
With no fees or minimums on checking accounts, it's no wonder the Capital One bank guy is so passionate about banking with Capital One. If he were here, he wouldn't just tell you about no fees or minimums. He'd also tell you about how Capital One cafes are open 7 days a week to assist with your banking needs. Yep, even on weekends. It's pretty much all he talks about, in a good way. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bankguy. Capital One N.A., member FDIC.
Hey everybody, it's us, Josh and Chuck, and we want you to know we are coming somewhere near you, we're sure, if you live in North America this year.
That's right. We're going on tour, and why don't we just rattle through these dates?
Okay.
Toronto, August 8th at the Danforth Music Hall.
Chicago, August 9th, the next day at Harris Theater.
Then we are taking some time off to recover after that 2-day grind. We're hitting Vancouver, the Vogue Theater, September 26th, followed by
Minneapolis. We're going to be at the Pantages Theater again on September 27th.
That is correct.
Yep, and then Austin, Chuck, on October 10th at the Paramount Theater.
Yes, and very special show in Lawrence, Kansas at Liberty Hall on October 11th.
Yep, and then we're going to do a 3-night stand October 22nd, 23rd, and 24th at the Bell House in Brooklyn, New York. And then, Chuck, take it home.
Well, take it home literally, because we are finishing up November 4th right here in Atlanta at the Buckhead Theater, and this is a very special benefit show. And all the proceeds will be going to Lifeline Animal Project of Atlanta and the National Down Syndrome Society.
Yep, and for more information and to buy tickets, just go to sysklive.com.
Welcome to Stuff You Should Know from HowStuffWorks.com.
Hey, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Josh Clark. And there's Charles W. Chuck Bryant. And there's Jerry. And this is Stuff You Should Know. Stuff You Should Know.
Hi.
Hi.
I was talking to everyone else.
Oh.
I was looking at you, though.
Sure.
Which made it weird.
I know. It's a little disarming.
So this episode on the Stonewall Riots, or did you watch that documentary, Stonewall Uprising, by chance?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I think, one of the people interviewed in there said they preferred, or at least he preferred it be called an uprising and not a riot. I kind of like that.
Yeah, I agree, because it lends it definitely a much more like credible tone.
Yeah.
For sure. A riot's just like, we're going crazy, we're going to steal stuff, we're going to bust stuff. An uprising is like, we've had enough and we're going to throw off this oppression. Yeah,
so this is being released, I believe, if my math is correct, 48 years and a day. It depends on when you count the beginnings of the Stonewall Uprising, because
right,
we'll get to it, but it started at 1 a.m. So technically, some people, when you go from night into day, still count that as the previous night. You know what I mean?
Those are people who are on drugs. You know what I mean?
I was about to say, I used to do that, but then you said that, so.
No.
But anyway, the 48-year anniversary, I thought about maybe holding off till the 50th, because I wanted to do this one for a long time, but then I thought, you know what? Who knows what's going to happen in 2 years?
Exactly. We could get hit by a bus.
Yeah, and then we never would have done this podcast.
Right. There's no time like the present, Charles.
Yes, especially since we finally got a great article from the Grabster on this.
Yeah. Man, that guy is so good. I read this article that he wrote, how the Stonewall Riots worked. He called it the riots.
Yeah.
I sent him an email just to say, like, dude, it is so nice to have you back.
Yeah, I felt the same way. In fact, I need to get his email so I can echo that, because, you read it and it's just like the old days. Good quality stuff.
Yeah. You want to talk about Stonewall?
Yeah, let's do it. Have you ever been there?
No, I haven't. I even stayed at Washington Park Inn, Washington Square Inn, which is nice. And I had no idea Stonewall was right around the corner. I didn't know very much about it. I mainly just, I knew it as like, I had a rough idea, but I think I knew about the same as I know about, say, Attica. So I know sometimes people chant Stonewall, sometimes people chanted Attica. So there you go. That was about as much as I knew.
You went and had a drink at Attica, though, so.
Right? Some radiator hooch. But,
next time go there and grab a drink at the Stonewall Inn. I highly recommend it.
Oh, yeah, I definitely intend to for sure. Because I love that part of New York, too.
Oh, it's the best.
The Village, so I had to go and look this up, right? Because I was like, wait, I'm starting to see people say West Village. They're also saying Greenwich Village.
It's the west part of Greenwich Village.
It is. Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's both. It's Greenwich Village and West Village, but technically it is in the West Village of Greenwich Village, which is between, Houston and 14th and Broadway.
You mean Houston?
Houston. And I've been in New York enough times, my friend.
Yeah, I made that mistake. Just don't ever say Avenue of the Americas.
I have plenty of times.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And I've gotten yelled at.
Yeah.
And then I think the Hudson is the other side of the village.
It's just my favorite part of town.
Is it?
Yeah, the village and the West Village is just, it's the best. You know, that's where, it just feels a little bit more like old New York. It's quaint. It's still kind of quiet. All those tiny little tree-lined streets that aren't just on a perfect grid. You can get lost down there. You can find yourself down there.
You can. You can pay $1 million a square feet for real estate.
Yeah.
It's nice.
It's great.
I like the Lower East Side a lot too, though, I have to say.
Yeah, and you know what? Last time I was in New York, Emily and I and I used to hang out some in the East Village. In fact, that's kind of where I used to go mostly because that's where my friends were back in the 90s. And I went there, and it is still nice and grimy.
What, the Village?
The East Village, yeah. It's
oh, yeah.
I mean, it's not, it's been, I don't want to say modernized, but it's been, what's the word? Not gentrified. Maybe gentrified.
Updated?
Yeah, it's been updated a little bit, but it's still kind of scummy, which is great.
Yeah, no, it definitely has a feel to it still for sure.
And a smell. Okay,
so Chuck, I think you said you've been to the Stonewall before. Did you know much of the history?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I went. And oddly enough, I just happened to be there in the days following the nightclub shooting in Florida.
Oh, man.
So, there were like armed guards at the Stonewall Inn and cause it's a national monument now.
Well, I know a lot of people flock to the Stonewall Inn after the Pulse nightclub shootings just to show solidarity and comfort one another. So the Stonewall has become this hub, this center of gay life in the United States, not just in New York. And the United States, I would even say probably globally.
Yeah, sure.
It had that much of a significance. But what's interesting about the Stonewall Inn is that it also had that same significance just for a much, much smaller community of gays, prior to June of 1969. But it has for decades and decades been a center of gay life. It's just, there was pre-Stonewall and post-Stonewall, and what that club meant to people really just changed by how many people, knew about it.
Yeah.
Or were pulled to it.
Yeah. Good way to say it.
Thanks, man.
So I think we should start as Ed suggests, as the Grabster suggests, by talking about before Stonewall.
Yeah.
And a little bit about the sad state of life as a gay person, as a trans person, the whole LGBTQ community, which of course they didn't call it that back then, but to be in that community in the 1950s and the 1960s was, it's interesting to talk about this stuff because there's still a long way to go, but you can't help but look at the progress when you look at the way things were in the 50s and 60s.
Well, what's crazy is that the 50s and 60s were a low point.
Yeah.
For I don't know if gay rights is the right word, but gay acceptance of the gay community by society at large. The 50s and 60s were a real low in that, because prior to that, people were a little cooler with it. Like straights were a little cooler with the idea of people being gay than they were in like the 50s and 60s. And it's thanks to our friend McCarthy.
Yeah. Like I got the feeling that there was a little bit of just a like, don't ask, don't tell philosophy going on, and not like the hammer coming down, which is what happened in the 50s and 60s. Like
Right.
there was a big pushback, and you're right, McCarthy had a lot to do with it. He was like, well, not only am I going to tackle McCarthyism, but while we're at it, let's castigate the gay community as well.
Right. I don't know if you remember or not, but we talked about Joe McCarthy being gay himself, most likely, or definitely, I can't remember. But in the midst of that, he spent time like persecuting gays, even though he was gay himself, which is pretty, I mean, if the guy wasn't despicable before, that really does it, 100% puts him over the fence.
Yeah. And it's something that happens still,
But he almost, and I don't want to say single-handedly, but his drive, that whatever he embodied in the McCarthyism trials or hearings or whatever, he helped turn the tide back against gay people.
Yeah.
It was going like okay for a little while, and then this guy comes along and just screws everything up, and then the next thing you know, the 50s and 60s, it's really, really bad to be gay. As a matter of fact, in the United States, outside of Illinois, every other state in the union, if you were gay, you were illegal just by being you.
Yeah, you're basically breaking the law through a web of laws that essentially criminalized it, whether it was anti-sodomy laws or saying you can't dance in public with a same-sex partner, or you can't wear, I mean, they actually had laws on what was called gender-appropriate clothing, where you had to wear a minimum of 3 pieces of clothing deemed appropriate for your gender. And because, they saw a big threat with, they called people, back then they called it people dressing in drag. But we're talking about different kinds of people, but a lot of times they were transgender people, dressing like they dressed,
Right.
Like dressing according to the gender they identified with. And they would they would find someone, they would bring in a female officer, and they would take them into a bathroom and either feel for parts or make them undress and check out their clothing and arrest them.
Yeah, and it didn't always even necessarily end in arrest. Like these laws were used as tools of intimidation and just general oppression, and the cops were acting in large part as like this extension, the action extension of like that part of America that just found gay people odious.
Yeah.
Just the whole concept. So everybody was just totally cool with the gay community being harassed and arrested and brutalized. There was a lot of violent crime and murders against gay people at the time. The newspapers didn't report virtually anything that had anything to do with the gay community. They were just complete open targets for exploitation and abuse. And it was just a terrible way to live. And as a result, a lot of gay people at the time just opted to act straight. They got married, they had kids, they just pretended in order to survive in the society they were born into. Yeah,
it was classified until 1973 in the DSM as a mental illness.
Yeah.
Aversion therapy was going on. I had never heard of this place until I saw that documentary, Atascadero State Hospital in California.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it either.
Oh man, they called it the Dachau for queers, where they would engage in shock treatment. They would show gay men pictures of naked men and then shock them. And they would give them, there was one drug that they gave that supposedly...
Yeah, had you heard of this?
No, a drug that simulated the experience of drowning. They would give lobotomies. It's just unbelievable that this was happening in our country like 50-something years ago.
Right, and so it's bad enough if your family is sending you off for treatment or whatever to basically be treated for being gay.
Yeah.
Because again, the field of psychology and psychiatry said this is a mental illness and we cure mental illnesses. So you can cure gayness. Let's just figure out how to do it in the most brutal means possible. So it's bad enough if your family sends you off, commits you for being gay.
Yeah.
But I think what strikes me as even worse was some gay people at the time buying into the idea that they were mentally ill, that there was something profoundly wrong with them that made them just so different that they would submit to this kind of treatment as well. You know?
Yeah, that clip in the Stonewall uprising with I don't know who that guy was that came to the school to talk to the kids. Just horrific, man.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch, to be honest.
It really is.
So the Lavender Scare is what it was kind of called under McCarthy in the 1950s. And, you know, this is all pre-Stonewall. And as Ed points out in the article, it was a dark time, but it was also a time where kind of underground the gay community was setting. And when I say gay community and we say it, we're talking about LGBTQ as a whole. It doesn't roll off the tongue. So we're going to say different things along the way. But it really, what they were doing kind of quietly was setting the stage and laying a foundation for progress later on with these kind of underground societies. It was called the homophile movement, and, you know, gay rights groups basically being founded.
Right. And the homophile movement was basically if Bob Newhart had been a gay activist. It was like button down, penny loafers, getting along with everybody.
Sure.
Being very quiet and pleasant, being an upstanding neighbor, like really, really taking care of your lawn. Like that kind of stuff. Like basically the point of the homophile movement was to point out to straight society that gay people were totally normal.
Right.
And the approach that they took was, we're going to kill them with kindness. We're going to win them over by being nice and by being quiet and by not causing a fuss.
Yeah, being good citizens.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things that came out of this, the homophile movement, was a society called the Mattachine Society.
Yeah.
Which is basically an underground gay liberation movement, but like a very slow, preppy gay liberation movement.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I like the preppy part.
But it founded a network. For the first time, like gay people could communicate with one another through like newsletters that were set up by the Mattachine Society and other, small groups like them. It was a big deal. Like they showed footage of them in the Stonewall Uprising documentary. And they're all wearing suits and their hair is very nice. And it's all like very well thought out. This isn't accidental. But they're acting not gay at all. But they're holding signs saying that proclaim that they're gay and that they deserve rights. And I mean, that was an extraordinarily brave thing to do back then, because if you were outed as gay, and Ed, I think, very wisely points out in this article, back then you could be fired for being gay.
Sure.
And Ed points out today you could still be fired for being gay. There's no federal protection against that.
Right.
It has gotten better. It's horrible that that's still not protected, right?
Yeah.
But back in the day, if you had the wrong kind of boss and they caught wind that you were gay, they could not only fire you, they could make it so you would never work again.
Yeah.
Like your life would be ruined. So to stand there in a suit and tie in the middle of New York with a sign that proclaimed you were gay and being like 20, 21 years old or something like that and having your whole life ahead of you, that was a very brave act to do. Even though the Mattachine Society, I get the impression that they're fairly criticized in the gay community for being really slow and kind of plodding and not doing enough and not being radical at all at the time, not really pushing gay rights forward as much as what would come after. Yeah,
but like we said, very importantly, they were laying a foundation for what would follow the Stonewall Riots. Should we take a break?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's take a break and we'll talk a little bit about the refuge that was the Stonewall Inn.
Stuff you should know.
Hey everybody, we're here to talk to you about Wayfair, who believes that spaces should be functional, they should be comfortable, they should be well-designed, and they can be well-designed by you with their help.
Your updated space should feel more comfortable, inviting, and practical for everyday use. And we're talking about outdoor seating. We're talking about grills. We're talking about major appliances. If you need storage solutions, Wayfair can help you out. Patio lighting, rugs, decor. It is your one-stop shop for home.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting nice out, so it's time to think about living outdoors for the next few months. And Wayfair knows that outdoor furniture, it's heavy, it's intimidating to assemble. So Wayfair has stepped in and said, we're going to handle the hard part so you don't have to.
That's right. You can shop Wayfair Verified, your shortcut to the good stuff. And that means their team of product specialists are going to vet everything by hand using a 10-point inspection, testing things like, quality materials, functionality, and features, and even how long it takes to build that piece of furniture. And the overall experience save time, reduce hassle, and improved convenience.
Patio season is here, and these deals won't last. So head to wayfair.com right now to get your outdoor space ready for way less. That's WAYFAIR.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Work can be a little weird. One minute you're in a meeting that could have been an email. The next you're trying to decode corporate jargon that somehow means nothing. And don't even get us started on the quick sync that turns into a 45-minute deep dive.
Yeah, well, the truth is figuring out your career isn't always straightforward. Whether you're trying to grow, pivot, or just stay relevant, it can feel like you're navigating it all on your own. Well, that's where LinkedIn comes in.
That's right. LinkedIn can help you grow your career, helping you confidently navigate your path with insights, ideas, and inspiration from your professional community. You can stay up to date with the latest trends in your field, connect with people who get it, and discover opportunities tailored to your goals, your experience, and what actually matters to you.
Whether you're looking for something new or just trying to grow where you are, LinkedIn gives you the tools and connections to move forward with confidence. Because LinkedIn is the network that works for you. Visit linkedin.com/knowstuff to learn more.
All right, so we set the stage for what life was like back then in the LGBTQ community, and kind of more than anything, there was no, and the irony to me is just inescapable. There was no meeting place. There was no way to normalize. So what happens is, you couldn't just go be gay and have a coffee with your gay friend out in public and be affectionate and just be a normal human being. So what happens is they ended up being driven underground and meeting in public bathrooms and in porn theaters. And as, in New York City, they were meeting in the backs of meat trucks. For hookups. And so this further stigmatized them as like taking part in like perverted, quote unquote, perverted behavior because they had nowhere else to go. So it was sort of like this feedback loop, like had they had a place to go to begin with, they might not have been meeting in bathhouses and might not have had this stigma attached to them. So,
well, I don't know if they wouldn't have still been meeting in bathhouses, but I think they would have enjoyed having more places to not just hook up. I think that's all that was available to them was just hooking up, and that was it.
Well, exactly. And there was one gentleman in that documentary that was just like, I just wanted to go place like to where I could fall in love with somebody and talk to somebody.
Yeah, that guy, I can't remember his name, but he struck me as well. He was describing the Stonewall. He was saying like that was that place. It was one of those few places where you could just feel relatively safe being gay. It was like one of the few places you could slow dance. And the way that he said it, Chuck, it was a place where you could find love.
Right.
It wasn't just about sex. Although I'm sure there's plenty of hookups, and apparently there was a prostitution ring running out of the Stonewall, but it was a place where you could find, there was just a vibe of love there, supposedly, is what the guy was saying, I think. And there weren't very many places like that in the world at the time.
Yeah, so the Stonewall in itself was, it was a pair of brick buildings originally that were horse stables, way back in the day. And then later on it was a bakery, and then eventually opened as the Stonewall Inn restaurant in 1934. And in the 1960s, and this was a pretty fascinating part of this whole story to me because I had no idea, but the mafia had had a business idea where they saw an opportunity for gay people to meet and buy booze and buy cigarettes and load money into the jukebox. And so the mafia had these underground gay bars all over New York City that they ran.
Right. They'd be like, hey, we just hijacked a truck that was full of cigarettes and booze. We should just sell it to the gay people at illegal saloons.
Yeah.
Since nobody else will. And the reason no one else would was because since it was illegal to be gay, if you were a known gay person and you were at a bar, that bar could be shut down. So bars were like, you can't come in here. We're not a gay bar. There's no gays allowed, basically.
Right.
And not only was this, legal, it was encouraged by the law. So the mafia was like, well, there's a huge market that's just needing to be satisfied here, and we'll step up, no problem.
Yeah, and before you go thinking the mafia was some benevolent group giving an outlet to the LGBTQ community, they did do that, but they were A, trying to make money, and B, they were also there were instances of blackmailing that would go on, that they would get maybe a straight acting, well-heeled gay man and as a target and say, all right, well, this guy's definitely got a good job and a family. So let's get his information and then hit him up for money or we'll out him. So they weren't, they weren't just benevolent mafiosos. There was some, untoward stuff going on their end for sure.
For sure, yeah. One of them, like I said, was the prostitution ring at the Stonewall Inn. They were dealing drugs at the Stonewall Inn. And again, like the entire bar, the Stonewall Inn as a bar was an illegal bar. And they weren't doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. They were exploiting like a vulnerable population, but it still, regardless of the mob's intentions, gay people took the place and made it their own spot.
Yeah.
And enjoyed it as a result. Too.
It was also, by all accounts, not only a dive bar with watered down drinks, but from the sounds of it, it was unsanitary.
Oh yeah.
Like just gross. And, not because of the clientele, because the mafia was, they just didn't care. They weren't keeping it clean. There was the one guy in the documentary was like, I never bought a drink there. He was like, that's the last place I was going to actually get a drink.
Yeah.
Like I would go to meet people and make friends, but, no way was I going to be ordering and paying for whatever they were serving.
He said they were serving like the beer out of pitchers and water buckets and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's no telling what was in that beer. He said that there was a rumor that, some infectious disease had spread because of the beer at the Stonewall. He was like, it was a dirty, dirty place. But again, it was a place where gay people could feel loved, Yeah,
and one of the reasons it was kind of allowed to run to a certain degree was the mafia was paying bribes and giving kickbacks to the cops of the 6th Precinct, which is where it was. So
Chuck,
they sort of had a deal worked out.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, ma'am. But Have you seen the documentary, The 7-5?
I've seen it twice.
How amazingly good is that?
Yeah, it's one of the best documentaries I've seen in a long time.
I agree. And Adam Diaz, man, come on.
Yeah,
that guy's like a real person.
I know.
It's amazing. Yeah,
if you're interested at all in bribes and dirty cops and kickbacks in New York City in the 80s, definitely watch that one.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
The 7-5.
Which was the 75th Precinct, correct?
Yes.
Which was
in cop talk, it's 7-5. Yeah, I think it's like, Jamaica, Queens, maybe?
Yeah, I can't remember, but I guarantee you they're making a feature film about that at some point.
Surely.
It's too good it's like you can't write anything better.
So sorry, man, I interrupted. You were talking about how the 6 was taking kickbacks from the owners of the Stonewall.
Yeah. So, they were taking kickbacks. So it was allowed to a certain degree because they were getting paid off.
Right. And the place would still get raided. Apparently It got raided fairly frequently, but when it got raided, the owners would be tipped off. It would be raided on like a weeknight when the place was pretty much dead and a lot of people weren't going to get hassled. And when it was raided, maybe there would be another bribe taken at the time. The patrons would basically be let go, but the whole process was just a process of intimidation, right?
Yeah.
Like you had to show your ID on your way out the door. And if you were gay and your life could be ruined for being outed, you didn't want to show any cop your ID.
Right.
So the whole thing was just a bad jam. And the idea that it didn't do anything really, except maybe increase the kickbacks for the cops, just made the whole thing even worse, you know?
Yeah, and so this kind of went along for a while, but everything changed on the night of June 27th and into the early morning of the 28th, when Deputy Inspector Seymour Pine of not the 6th Precinct, which is notable, but Manhattan's 1st Division of Public Morals, he led a different kind of raid with some undercover cops at about 1 a.m., and everything changed that night.
Yeah, that night something was different. Like everything just kind of came together and just went a certain way. You know how, like, do you watch basketball?
Sure.
So it's astounding when, you know, one team can just be killing the other team.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden somebody on the losing team like steals a pass and takes it back and just dunks it, or passes it to somebody else for like 3-point and they sink it, and the momentum just completely turns, and it can happen just like that. I have the impression that, like, in the course of the gay rights movement, this was one of those instances where a pass was stolen and taken to the other basket and just dunked.
Yeah, it's a nice sports analogy.
Thanks.
You're right. There's something about that kind of momentum that can't be manufactured. It all just has to come together in an organic way. Mm-hmm. And it's funny, Ed did put in here, there were some people throughout the years that have said that the death of Judy Garland earlier on June 22nd had riled up the gay community because she was so big in the gay community. They're all upset over Judy Garland, and that is what kind of helped kick off the Stonewall Riots. By all accounts, that's probably not true, but maybe they were grumpier than normal. Who knows? Maybe.
It just strikes me as such like a demeaning, dismissive explanation, you know, like, oh, you gays were just mad because Judy Garland died. Exactly. So you acted up and it just happened to work out in your favor, you know?
Right. So, what happened is, Pine comes in, he's got these cops, and their intention was to, not only shut down a gay bar, but to shut down a mafia bar for selling liquor without a license. And like you said before, it was, just a part of a series of raids that summer all over Manhattan, for these underground gay bars.
Yeah, the checkerboard had gone under on its own, but the rumor was that the cops had shut it down. The Telestar, the Snake Pit, the Sewer, they all went down either on their own or because of police raids. But either way, the idea in the gay community was that they were in the midst of a major persecution. All of their places were getting shut down.
Sure.
And supposedly among the police, they were shutting down mafia bars, but the gay community wasn't getting that. They were seeing that their gay bars were being shut down. So there was definitely a sense of persecution that summer in New York among gays who went to gay bars.
Yeah, things were kind of simmering at this point.
Yeah, oh, and one more thing. I want to give a shout out to David Carter, I believe his name is. He literally wrote the book on Stonewall that the Stonewall Uprising documentary was based on. He's an historian of the Stonewall Uprising. So most of the stuff that we have that's legitimate comes from this guy's research.
Yeah, for sure. So what happens is these cops come in there. They start the routine like you were talking about of exit the bar one at a time. We need your ID. They didn't just herd everyone out in one big rush because they wanted that identification, which is part of the intimidation. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is one by one, these people are filing out and they don't go home because they're hanging out outside waiting for their friends inside to get let out. And this crowd starts gathering. Then the crowd starts building not only from the people inside, but as Ed points out in this article, other people in the community in the village. This is, it was a gay part of New York, still is. Yep. And these street kids start coming up, and these transgender people and cross-dressers and, basically everyone in that community with something to gain and nothing to lose, start kind of hanging around as this kind of a more intimidating it feels like raid went on.
Right. And a lot of them, they weren't like necessarily coming from down the street. A lot of them have been inside, like the Stonewall. Yet another thing about the Stonewall is it was one of the few places where transgender people were welcome, and it was actually kind of their bar. And like you said, as people were filing out, showing their ID and waiting for their friends, that crowd was growing bigger and bigger, and they're growing on the other side of the cops. So now there's this crowd developing and the cops are between the crowd and the outside of the Stonewall.
Yeah.
Right? So they're kind of trapped.
Yeah, it's a pretty tight area anyway, if you've ever been over there. The whole West Village is like that, but where the Stonewall is in particular, it's just not, it doesn't face some big wide open Manhattan street scene.
Yeah. And so this crowd's getting bigger and bigger. It's hot. They're getting a little restless. They're starting to shout some stuff at the cops. And I think there's a number of things that Ed says contributed as triggers or flashpoints from this, what should have been a routine police raid to harass, gay bars or shut down a mafia owned bar, turning into this uprising. And there were several things. One of the things is the context it was in was this is a time in the United States as a whole when social unrest was pretty prominent.
Yeah.
There were a lot of groups that were organizing and agitating just against the status quo and the establishment. And so the idea of pushing back against police brutality was definitely, in the air in the United States more than, say, 5 or 10 years earlier.
Yeah, I mean, this was a time of war protests, of the Black Panthers, if you listen to that episode. And in fact, as you'll see in the days following, not even following the riots, but as the riots extended into days 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, the Black Panthers actually showed up in support, which was great. Yeah. So another thing that happened was there was no backup. There were not enough cops. They were calling for backup from the 6, but the 6 had been getting kickbacks, and kind of the story goes that they didn't so much appreciate this other group, the Division of Public Morals, coming into their zone and kind of taking charge of this raid. So they were like, we're not going to send anyone right now. At least that's how the story goes.
Yeah, Seymour Pine is actually interviewed in the Uprising documentary, and he's saying like the radio kept cutting out every time he called for backup, and he's like, that had never happened before. So the insinuation is that, the 6th precinct was like, you're on your own, pal. This will teach you a lesson. But you can kind of understand from the 6th precinct's point of view, like that, it was fine. Like 3 or 4 straight cops could handle any number of, gay people coming out of a gay bar during a raid.
Right.
Because gay people were viewed as docile, effeminate, basically everything that, the white male establishment viewed women as.
Yeah.
Like in all of the repugnant ways, they also viewed gay people in exactly the same way, right? So the idea that the 6th precinct didn't send any backup wasn't like, these guys are going to get killed and we don't care. Right. It was, let those guys handle, the administrative part of this raid or whatever. They bit this off. Now they can chew it, right?
Yeah. Like what's going to happen? They're not going to fight back, like
exactly.
Physically. That'll never happen.
That was the idea.
So all this is going on. They're being filed out. This crowd is growing. Tensions are brewing. And here's where it gets murky. And apparently there's a lot of versions of the story and even some infighting within the LGBTQ community on who actually started it. Some people say that someone named Marsha Johnson yelled from the bar, "I got my civil rights," and threw a shot glass through the bar mirror. It was called the shot glass, heard around the world. Other people say someone named Jackie Hormona started it, and other people say this one lesbian woman being stuffed in a cop car was battling so fiercely that she kind of got things going. Yeah,
supposedly she shouted, "Why don't you guys do something?" to the crowd as she's like fighting a bunch of cops.
Yeah, to me it doesn't matter who maybe lit the fuse, so to speak. It could have been any number of people as far as I'm concerned. You know?
Well, sure, yeah. I mean, it could have been that. It could have been the people started throwing pennies at the cops, and then pennies turned into bricks, and then somebody set some garbage on fire outside of the Stonewall, and essentially something changed, right? The tone changed. It turned, as if you were a cop, it turned ugly real quick, and whatever started it. It started to move fairly quickly. And Seymour Pine, Deputy Inspector Seymour Pine of Manhattan's 1st Division of Public Morals, said, we need to get into the safety of the bar.
Yeah.
Which is really saying something about what the mood of the crowd was like if all of a sudden the inside of the Stonewall Inn was now the safest place to be.
Right. It became their refuge, ironically. Yeah. So they locked themselves in and did not stay in there for too long. I mean, there were still some patrons in there. There was a reporter in there, supposedly, and
yeah, he was from the Village Voice.
Yeah, and then they, the people outside, ripped up a parking meter, knocked down the door, and by all accounts, the cops were in a bit of a state of shock because they didn't see this coming. I think a lot of the protesters were surprised at themselves that they were standing up as one and being physical with these police officers.
Yeah, and one of the people who was there, who was interviewed in the documentary, was saying, the crowd saw it. They saw that the police were scared.
Yeah.
And the crowd was feeding on that. It was just feeding the crowd that to see the cops who had always been in control, who are the ones who had abused, this community for so long, were now suddenly scared for their lives. Just this crowd was just eating it up, and it was feeding the energy that they were working off of. And Chuck, apparently there's one of the cops was so scared that he threw his gun at the crowd. And from what I understand, no shots.
Bullets?
That's what I'm saying. From what I understand, no shots were fired, which means that it would have been full with bullets. So basically, that cop was like, here's my loaded gun.
Yeah, that's weird, because that's what you're supposed to do in an old Western when you run out of bullets.
Right, or with Superman, right? You shoot at him, and then all the bullets bounce off his chest, and then you throw your gun at him, and he ducks.
So weird. All right, let's take another break. The riot is in full swing at this point, and we'll come back and finish up and tell you the end of the story right after this.
Yep. Stuff you should know.
Work can be a little weird. One minute you're in a meeting that could have been an email. The next you're trying to decode corporate jargon that somehow means nothing. And don't even get us started on the quick sync that turns into a 45-minute deep dive.
Yeah, well, the truth is figuring out your career isn't always straightforward. Whether you're trying to grow, pivot, or just stay relevant, it can feel like you're navigating it all on your own. Well, that's where LinkedIn comes in.
That's right. LinkedIn can help you grow your career, helping you confidently navigate your path with insights, ideas, and inspiration from your professional community. You can stay up to date with the latest trends in your field, connect with people who get it, and discover opportunities tailored to your goals, your experience, and what actually matters to you.
Whether you're looking for something new or just trying to grow where you are, LinkedIn gives you the tools and connections to move forward with confidence. Because LinkedIn is the network that works for you. Visit linkedin.com/knowstuff to learn more.
Hey everybody, I want to talk to you a little bit about Tide Evo because it represents over 10 years of innovation and product development. Tide Evo is a first-of-its-kind technology where tens of thousands of minuscule fibers are spun together to form a 6 times powerful layer packed with scrubbers, brighteners, pre-treaters, and fresheners. And that's going to deliver a breakthrough clean that's so powerful it feels like magic.
Yeah, it is kind of like magic. Tide Evo is revolutionary. A 100% concentrated, waterless laundry tile that's made of compressed microfiber soap layers rather than liquid or powder. And it's not like pods or sheets because it uses 6 layers of detergent fibers to deliver superior cold water cleaning without plastic packaging of any kind. And it provides a mess-free, lightweight solution that dissolves lickety-split. So whenever you run into a laundry challenge, turn to Tide Evo. It's revolutionary. It's magic. Try new Tide Evo. Real laundry magic.
So, Chuck, I feel like we should, while we're describing the rest of the riot, we should be playing yakety sax.
Yeah, just to give it a light touch.
So it was one of the accounts that I saw, apparently compiled by David Carter, was that it was a gay riot, right? Yeah. There were a lot of transgender people dressed up, women dressed up, doing a kick line at the police.
Yeah, like a Rockettes kick line and singing.
Right. One transgender woman hit one of the police with her purse.
Uh-huh.
There was, definitely that element going on. The cops were apparently really caught off guard. By this time, I think the 6th had gotten the word and were starting to send backup because they had heard that these cops were now holed up inside the Stonewall and there was a riot going on outside. So they were sending backup, but even the backup and trained riot police were like powerless in the face of this completely bizarre riot, right? They were used to a certain kind of riot. They were not used to a gay riot, and it was throwing them off big time.
Well, it's funny too. The one of the guys in the documentary said the next day he was talking about all the fake jewelry and the sequins on the street, and he was like, it looked like just like a field of like shimmery diamonds and things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you're right. This is unlike any riot they had experienced, and I guess this was precursor to SWAT. Was New York's Tactical Patrol Force.
Yeah,
it might have been
SWAT,
wasn't it?
Contemporary. SWAT was like called out against the Black Panthers in LA for the first time.
Okay.
It would have been like maybe that year or the year before, but New York wouldn't have had a SWAT team by then.
Yeah, we did an episode on SWAT, so you can go listen to that and correct us at will.
Yeah, sure.
But so they call in the Tactical Patrol Force. Things are definitely serious at this point. And there were probably, between 600 and 1,000 people. People started calling people on the phone, get down here, it's going down. Mm-hmm. And the crowd swelled, and when you got 1,000 angry people from the LGBTQ community mm-hmm. that had enough after years and years of mistreatment, it was a pretty serious affair.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anytime people are throwing bricks at cops, it turns serious pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
So, because you said before, like the layout of the streets in the West Village are not like in a neat grid, the cops would chase the rioters or the protesters, whatever you want to call them at this point, down one street. And then the crowd, rather than running and dispersing, would just turn as a whole down another street and come back around. And then they would be chasing the cops.
Yeah.
So there was this whole like chase and like just changes in momentum, like we were talking about earlier. And it just went on for hours and hours and hours, basically until daylight, from what I understand.
Yeah. So eventually, this crowd dispersed, but it did not end there. This went on for about 6 days, and another guy in the documentary said that he felt like people were even more angry on day 2, kind of once word got around. But on day 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, it was a little bit different. Things actually, they got a little more organized, and not in a violent way, like, here's how we're going to take them down strategically. But, like we said, people started coming out. Black Panthers came out, hippies came out, civil mm-hmm. rights protesters, tourists came out. It became like Ed says, a counterculture event. And, before you knew it, it was kind of the first big major gay protest was going on.
Right. They, basically anybody who wanted to fight the cops was like, let's go do this. And they did. For, like you said, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days.
Yeah, it was coalescing, it feels like.
Day 2, though, seems to be like the day when everything really came together, because there were still more protesters than cops, apparently. Although the cops changed tactics. They were no longer like hitting people with clubs in the legs. They were hitting them in the head.
Right.
There were like a lot of people with head injuries laying around. It was pretty grisly and brutal, but the protesters were still like fighting pretty hard.
Sure.
But in the midst of all this, there were also people giving speeches. They were chanting gay power. There was a political tone to it that hadn't been there the night before.
Right.
and that wouldn't be there necessarily for the following nights, because on night, I guess 3, there were more cops than protesters from that moment on. But one of the other things that really kind of egged this whole thing along as well was that the next night after this riot and protest and following the raid, the Stonewall Inn opened again for Saturday. So they opened up on Saturday, and it was they just put out a welcome sign for all of the protesters saying, come on back, it's not done yet.
Yeah, so eventually everything quieted down after those 6 days by that next Sunday. And, but this would not be the end. It was really just kind of the beginning of what was to come. A few months after that, they had a commemorative march in New York and across the United States. And then that was just one march. And then a year later, on the first anniversary of the riots, they had what would become the first gay pride march. They didn't call it that at the time. And in the documentary, it's really moving when they're talking about, at first they didn't, they said they didn't know if it was supposed to be from Christopher Street to Central Park. Mm-hmm. And they said, we didn't know if we were going to make it that far. We didn't know if there would be 10 of us or 12 of us. It was just sort of uncertain. It was obviously way before internet. And so there wasn't, communication like you have today. Right. But what they had were leaflets, and they handed out thousands of them. And there were a few hundred people at first, but all these, people from the LGBTQ community were apparently lined the streets in support. And as they marched, they joined in. I think there was a lot of fear to, hold up a sign and join a march until they saw other people doing the same thing. And so they kind of joined in. And by the time they got to Central Park, there were thousands and thousands of people. I know, man. In what would be, the first, pride parade in the United States.
And apparently the time that was scheduled, like the parade finished in about half the time they had allotted for it, because everybody was moving so quickly because they were so excited and so nervous about what was going to happen. But it turned out to be the first gay pride parade.
The guy called it they called it a run, which I thought was pretty funny. Yeah.
But it's pretty amazing that as it went, it just attracted support. Like, that's a heck of a parade. Yeah. When the bystanders get sucked into the parade, that's a good parade right there.
Yeah, so out of this grew the Gay Activist Alliance, the Gay Liberation Front. Ed pointed out an irony that it really never occurred to me, but one of the reasons it's considered sort of the birth of the modern gay rights movement, he said, is because it was not the start of the gay rights movement. And like we said earlier, that foundation was already there. This was just sort of the catalyst. They weren't starting from scratch. They had these groups that were together, and they were kind of just, I think, waiting for something to happen to really bring them attention. And even though there were some uprisings in 65 and 66 and 67 in San Francisco and LA, they weren't, although the New York Times didn't cover this like they should have either, but those weren't covered by major newspapers at all, just underground newspapers. So they never really kind of got the coverage, and they weren't as noteworthy as Stonewall ended up being.
I was reading about that too. The Compton's cafeteria riot in San Francisco in, I think, 1967. Yeah. Was a pretty big riot, actually. And it was a transgender riot where transgender women who were working the Tenderloin as sex workers because they couldn't get work anywhere else, they were just sick of being brutalized by cops, and one of them was being arrested for being transgender. Yeah. And she threw her cup of coffee in the cop's face, and the whole riot the place just rioted. Like, it was just an explosion of violence in the face of brutality. And none of the papers mentioned it. Didn't even get mentioned. Yeah. Like, the mainstream media would not touch anything that gay people were doing, including rioting in the streets of San Francisco. They just wouldn't talk about it.
Well, and like I said, the Times, while they did cover it, it wasn't a back pages thing, but it definitely didn't get the attention that any other kind of, like, violence against police would have gotten at the time. Right. But, the LGBTQ community they just didn't stop, basically. They said, we're going to turn these into groups and marches and rallies and parades and protests. And that was really the significance and the legacy that Stonewall had today, is it really just was sort of a, pardon the pun, kind of a coming out party for the entire movement. You know?
Yeah, it was a debutante ball for the gay community.
It was.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think that was the key, was organizing, like taking that momentum and organizing it, turning it into something big.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the key with anything like that.
Yeah, and I think it also, I think it brought together that community in a way that it hadn't before. It seems like they always sort of supported one another, but there are and were and are divisions of, you know, kind of straight acting masculine gay men and lesbians and the trans community. But this seemed to bring everyone together, of all races, and, just apparently the entire riot and protest scene was just incredibly diverse.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Don't watch the movies.
Yeah. So
they're bad.
Yeah. One of the heroes in one turns straight and marries a policewoman in the end.
I mean, the documentaries are good, but there's been two movies, 95 and 2015. The one in 2015 was just an abomination, basically.
Yeah. Documentaries are rarely bad. Almost never bad.
Yeah.
It's the movies, they're not that great sometimes.
Yeah. The one in 2015, Roland Emmerich made this movie. And
why is that name familiar? I know that name.
He did Independence Day and Godzilla.
Oh, okay.
Like, I have no idea what he was doing with this thing. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he's gay. Maybe his heart was in the right place. I have no idea. Like, I don't know anything about the guy, but all I know is he was roundly criticized for whitewashing what happened, and he said it was fictionalized, but like, why fictionalize it? Why just cast a bunch of handsome white dudes when you can tell the real story, you know?
Right, yeah, and it's like you said, you already kind of touched upon it, but I think it bears repeating. Like, there's a lot of discussion about who did what and who played what role.
Yeah.
In the Stonewall uprising. And I think the transgender community in particular feels like yet again they're being put in the back seat behind masculine white gay males.
Right.
When in fact they may not have played as big a role, or may have played an equally significant role to the transgender community that was there at Stonewall. But historically speaking, the transgender community or subcommunity or subculture of the gay community has usually taken a back seat to what you would just call that white masculine male community.
Yeah.
And I can understand being upset about that if you're transgender.
So in 2016, and I guess I was there right after this, because it was already a monument. The Stonewall Inn and the cute little tiny Christopher Park right there next door, out front, was designated a national monument by President Obama. The very first such dedicated to gay rights. And the Pride March still ends on Christopher Street every year. And I say, go and have a drink there. It's a truly historic place, and it's a landmark.
And I would guess now they've cleaned it up enough so you won't catch anything from the house beer.
Yeah, it's not, they don't have buckets of beer. Well, they might have buckets of beer, but
right,
it's
but
like
it's good
Coronas
stuff.
in a bucket of ice.
I gotcha.
You know?
Yeah, find your beach is what the Stonewall lid said. You got anything else?
Nope.
Man, go watch the Stonewall Uprising American Experience documentary, everybody, especially the footage of that first Pride Parade.
Yeah.
When it ends in the park, it'll just do your heart good.
Agreed.
If you want to know more about the Stonewall Uprising, you can type Stonewall in the search bar at howstuffworks.com, and it will bring up this excellent article by the Grabster. And since I said the Grabster, it's time for listener mail.
You know what? We're going to forego listener mail this week in favor of our annual call for iTunes reviews.
Awesome.
How about that? So one thing that always helps the podcast out, people are always asking what they can do besides spreading the word, is if you go and leave a review on iTunes, or I guess it's now Apple Podcasts.
Right.
It helps us out. And even if it's bad, Well, that didn't help us, but...
No, that doesn't help us. Don't listen to Chuck, everybody. Listen to the first part, but not the second part.
Just, leave your honest review and assessment, and all that helps us out and has been very effective over the years at keeping us viable and vital.
And
so,
with vim and vigor.
Yeah, we'll be back next week with listener mail, but we would very much appreciate that.
Well, thanks. And if you want to let us know that you left us a nice review so we can say thank you, you can tweet to us at SYSK Podcast. And I'm at Josh Clark on Twitter as well. You can hang out with Chuck on Facebook at Charles W. Chuck Bryant or at facebook.com/Stuff You Should Know. You can send us an email to stuffpodcast@howstuffworks.com. And as always, join us at our home on the web, stuffyoushouldknow.com.
For more on this and thousands of other topics, visit howstuffworks.com.
Mom, can I have Lingo Kids? Dad, Lingo Kids, please!
When did we become the Lingo Kids house?
No idea. Last week it was dinosaurs. This week it's...
Lingo Kids!
Why Lingo Kids?
Because it's the best thing ever.
We can play games
with astronauts,
wild animals,
and superheroes.
With more than 4,000 interactive games, songs, and shows, Lingo Kids is the #1 entertainment platform for young kids.
So, no dinosaurs?
And dinosaurs! Lingo Kids!
Everything kids love. Download it for free.
You could be adored by everyone and still completely ignored by your cat. Trust me, I know. But if you feed your cat Sheba, you can go from being ignored to truly adored in 12 days, guaranteed, or your money back. Sheba has a full menu of products, appetizers, entrees, treats, even a kitten's menu. It's so cute, so Sheba has a product for even the pickiest eater. Like Sheba Puree, it's made with bone broth, their chef-inspired flavors. It's got a smooth and creamy texture that cats love and contains no corn, wheat, soy, or artificial flavors. It's food that your cat's gonna love. To learn more, check out Sheba.com. That's SHEBA.com.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.